Thank you. So welcome, everybody, to the second hour of MindShifters Radio. And today is Monday, and it's March the 6th, 2023. And our calling number is 563-999-3581. And press 1, and that puts you in the queue to talk to us, your show. And while I'm waiting on Michael to dial in, I had gotten a text from Michael Teddy, and he let me know that Friday's show cut off at about 27 minutes. I couldn't figure out why it did that, but if you go to the notes for Friday, I've included a link to the YouTube channel, and I have put part 3 up on our YouTube, so you can actually watch and listen to the entire part 3. So apologies, I don't know, what would have cut it off, if that was a Blog Talk thing or what. But anyway, that is out there if you want to go and listen to it. And probably on Wednesday, I'll be driving to Asheville to pick Michael up. He's flying back home. And so we'll probably play the 4th part of Aramaicisms on Wednesday live today and tomorrow. And we appreciate you holding the space for us. Michael, Joe, and Krista, which is Michael's children, their mother, CJ, passed away. It was Saturday night about 9 o'clock. But he's been there all week just holding space and being with them and being there to support the kids and CJ as she transitions. And so she is now at peace and out of pain, and so we just bless her on the rest of her journey. And the kids still have, some adjustment. And Michael will be home on Wednesday. So, like I said, I'll play the 4th Aramaicisms on Wednesday because I'll be driving. So I'll go pick him up in Asheville. And I see he just popped on. So welcome, Michael.
Thank you, dear heart, and welcome, everybody. Honored and delighted that you're here as we get to move to the next level of this inquiry about first century Aramaic forgiveness. Delighted that you join us to do this. It's been an interesting ride here in Kansas City. Arrived a week ago.
Last Sunday.
Sunday, yeah, arrived Sunday. Yeah. And CJ was pretty much non-communicative, maybe 2 or 3 words in the next day or 2, and then she was totally non-communicative. And so I got to spend a couple of nights in the hospital, just being with her and holding the space and being with the kids, which it's been a challenge for them. They've really been troopers in being with her and taking care of her. She's lived with Michael J. for about the last 7 years. It's been a pretty challenging 7 years. And then it was interesting, the hospice had come in and said, well, she'll be, gone probably within 24 hours, and then that expanded, and then that contracted, and so it's sort of been, it was a back and forth sort of thing. And the day that she passed, or actually it was the evening, the kids had left about an hour earlier. Her brother had taken him to the airport at 5 in the morning that day, and he had a prearranged ticket and decided he wasn't going to change it. He got to say his goodbyes, and I came back, and the kids were pretty tired, and the baby was a little on the fussy side, so I was like, well, why don't you guys go home, and I'll just stay here with her. And about 8 in the evening, the nurse came in, the hospice nurse, and they wanted to turn her, and so they gave her some meds, and she had some very labored breathing. Up to that point, that had started about 24 hours earlier. A lot of clearing of her throat, but pretty much unconscious. And they turned over, and she just got very quiet. The labored breathing disappeared. She just was breathing away, and the nurse and I got into a conversation about first century Aramaic forgiveness. It became an engaged conversation for about 10 minutes. So we're talking about Yeshua in the first century and what the man they called Jesus' real name was and what forgiveness meant. And about 10 or maybe 12 minutes in that conversation, she turned back to CJ to just say, I'm going to finish checking her vitals. And she had left in the middle of that conversation, which I thought was pretty interesting timing, considering they had expected her to leave earlier. That it was during a conversation about the Aramaic forgiveness process in Yeshua. So it was an interesting time. Got a chance to have some conversations, one-sided conversations about our relationship and the challenges we had faced, and felt like that was pretty clean and cleaned up. And so it's a powerful process. And so I'm still with the kids. We're actually just going through cleaning out a bunch of her things and papers, and I can't fathom what the medical bills had been. Hundreds, I would think, thousands of dollars in the last several years doing dialysis, and she had fallen and broken her knee and broken her ankle. I mean, it just was a tough couple of years. So appreciate everybody holding the space, extending love in our direction, and it certainly has been a blessing to understand that by holding to that presence of love, a lot of things get processed, a lot of things move. So that's kind of what the whole experience has been about. And so if everyone would just hold a space for CJ, Carol Joan. And she moves on her journey to the next level. And she left just so peacefully. It was really awesome to be part of it. I always felt very privileged that she allowed me to be there for that process. The afternoon before she passed, the kids were still there, and I'd been there all night, and it wasn't a very restful night. Pardon me, I'd been up at 4:30 in the morning to pick up her brother and take him to the airport. So it's been a long day, and so I had taken a nap, and during my nap, I became aware that I'd spontaneously gone into still point breathing. And so I did quite a bit of breathing. It was nothing cognizant for me, but physiologically it was like my body was demanding that I breathe. And so that was an interesting piece in the process, and thank God for the tools. So Miss Jeanie, do we have anything going on with questions from the app or questions from the website to start out with?
No. I went out and checked earlier this morning, and there are no questions, and nobody has a hand up. Just all quiet over here. Aria had asked me when I picked her up. She said, "Is Papa in the car?" And I said, "No." I said, "He's still in Kansas City." And she's like, "All right." She said, "He's been gone a long time." So
I loved the post. Hey, Aria.
Papa, hey.
Hello, Aria. Hey, sweetheart. How are you, sweetheart?
Good. How are you doing in Kansas City?
I'm doing pretty well in Kansas City. I'm looking forward to getting home and hugging your neck and Nini's neck.
That'd be nice.
How about I pray for you?
That would be really. What did you say for me?
No, she said, how about if she prays for you?
Oh, please, yes, that would be really helpful. We're processing a lot of energy here for just being love would be a big gift to send to your Uncle Michael and your Aunt Jamie and Kaylee, Joe, and me. That would be awesome. Thank you. And I will send love to you too. All right. Appreciate you, sweetheart. I loved the post. Did Nini show you the post that she put on Facebook where there's a picture of you and you were listening to the radio show and it was a recording? And I was saying, "Thank you, dear heart." And you said, "Oh, Papa's talking to me." And Nini told you it was recording. You said, "Well, that's okay. I'm going to hold him in my heart anyway." Well, you have to get Nini to show you that picture. It was sweet.
I will.
Yeah. So if you're out there in Listerland, I actually, things have been pretty hectic, pretty busy here, and so I haven't really prepared anything for today. But we can, of course, launch into any one of 1,000 different topics. It was interesting to one of the hospice nurses, the first evening that she came in that I met her. She'd been in a couple of times during the day, but we had a little bit of time to talk in the evening, and she was asking what I did, and there were two different hospice nurses where we talked about forgiveness, and we had quite a lengthy, she completed with CJ, and we had quite a lengthy conversation about forgiveness and what it meant and how it was about dealing with energies within. And she came back in the evening, and she said, I just want to say thank you for that conversation. She said, I know that, people are put in our lives for a reason. And she said, it was really clear to me today that conversation we had, I needed. She said, I was going to work with a family who's got a loved one passing. And they were just in a raging fight when I got there. And she said, I was able to take the conversation we had about forgiveness, and when I left, everybody was at peace and in a friendly space. So that was pretty cool. So I sent her our course on healing and plan to volunteer. It would be awesome to work with hospice volunteers. The energy they have to face and process and deal with, and stress and all of that would be awesome to do some work with them. So I'm going to conversation with her, and maybe we'll do some work with hospice volunteers and hospice nurses and such. So that was pretty powerful. So if you're out there in listener land, our calling number, if you're on a station where we can't see you, is 563-999-3581. If you have a thought or a question for us, I would love to hear it. If you call that number, you'll be listening to the show directly. And if you have a question, all you do is push 1, and that will raise your hand in the phone queue. Jeanie will introduce you by your area code, and we'll have a conversation. So we'd love to have a conversation with you. Thoughts, questions, answers, ideas, what's on your mind? How can we support you? 563-999-3581. So we've got 45 minutes, and if you raise your hand, we can talk about whatever you're ready to talk about. So
not everybody at once.
Not everybody at once, so yeah, that would be overload. Well, one of the things that's getting really clear for me being here is a new level of recognizing how everybody's got a reality, and that our realities could not be more different, and the importance of recognizing that reality is an individual interpretation by the mind based on information resonated in the mind from the past by the events that are happening. And the faster we can recognize that, the faster we can shift out of disturbance and upset if we realize that all of that's coming from inside of us, that it isn't an external event that we're looking at, that we're experiencing when we're looking at something in our minds. We're looking at a product of what's moving in our minds, what's moving inside of us. And when we can take responsibility for that, then the game changes. And so many people, have bought into the belief that some sort of anger or manipulation will get you what you want, when anger and manipulation is nothing but repeating a power person dynamic from the past. It'll never get you what you want. I mean, you might be able to force somebody into doing a behavior that you think is what it's all about, but in the last analysis, it will never fulfill the underlying goals. And our culture's accepted two really huge lies. One is if you disagree with someone's lifestyle, something you're doing, then you've either got to fear or hate them. We see that so much in the political realm. We hear, all this stuff going on about trans and gays and, all this stuff that's going on, that there's such hatred and there's no recognition from the person who's hating that the hate is just a condition in their own minds. And they, often proclaiming, supposedly in the name of religion, that it's their job to fight against what somebody else thinks or believes or the way they behave or what they do or their sexuality or whatever. And the craziness of believing that is just amazing. You don't have to agree with someone's lifestyle. Stand as a space of active, present love with them. And to be that space of love, this is kind of another lie that we bought into. To be that space of love doesn't mean you have to agree with anything that they say or do. But we can each function, we can each claim that state of being. So those beliefs are just total nonsense. And there's a gentleman, I believe he was a minister, or is a minister, his name's Rick Warren, and he says you don't have to compromise convictions to be compassionate. So you can be totally convinced that something is, whatever, good, bad, evil, wrong, right, and you can live as a human being and be compassionate in spaces where you don't agree with people. People's financial decisions, people's, the way they live in their homes, the way their homes are. We don't have to lose compassion or lose the experience of our human lives to hold the space for people to have choice and be who they are and stay out of interference with what other people's choices are.
Yeah, Han.
Well, then let's go for it.
All right, it's Susan, area code 610. You are in the
Hi, welcome back.
Hey, welcome, young lady.
But I mean back from your task. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
I'm kind of back.
A lot. You're kind of back, right?
It's been an intense time, to say the least.
Right. It sure is. And it's wonderful that you're going to work with hospice nurses. Tim and I used to volunteer at the Connecticut Hospice. The Branford, it was the flagship years ago, the first hospice in the country. It came over from England.
Right.
And we worked there, and the intensity of that work is amazing.
Huge.
Those nurses are in a position to be open to hearing what you have to say. I can't imagine they wouldn't be. Either that or they've gotten tough or something. But it's wonderful that you're going to do that. You should find a very
at this point,
audience.
Yeah, at this point, I'm based the interaction I've had with these two ladies and the shift that it made for one of them. It's not that that's any kind of a fait accompli. It's just a thought at this point for me to approach her and say, to volunteer to work with her acquaintances and or whoever in that field is interested and willing in being supportive of the forgiveness work. So hold the space for that, and or if there's anybody listening that knows anybody that's involved in hospice that, it may be a group of one or two or three, local nurses, or it may be the whole organization. I don't know, but I'm certainly open to providing support and the tools for the huge quantities of energy that these folks have to process. Is just unbelievable.
It is amazing. Well, this facility was a whole building, and then during the AIDS crisis, they built a whole separate building because they were terrified that AIDS would be passed around, So they had the AIDS building, and Tim and I worked over there too, and it was like the beginnings of COVID. We probably took too many precautions because we didn't know how communicable this was, but I think they had programs for their nurses. But this was a facility that had its own headquarters. It's different when you're doing in-home hospice care, but you're right. If there's probably a website or a head organization, and they would know where you could go, and with Zoom, my goodness, you could do it from anywhere. Wow.
Exactly. That's what I'm looking for, yes.
Yeah. Well, I have a sort of, what you've been talking about hitches right into our situation here with Michael. And I was talking to Dr. Tim about it. Michael has been, what you said the other day helped a lot. You said he's trying his hardest to be invisible. And there's an article in the New York Times today about interviews have been, hundreds of interviews evidently have been made by reporters with homeless people. And the heading is, what do you know about homelessness? And the quote is, quote, "You want invisibility," says a homeless person. "You don't want to be noticed," end quote. So
there's so much danger to that community. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Michael has been more and more invisible to the point where a couple of days ago, Tim and I came home probably a little early from a walk, and Michael was microwaving something in our kitchen, and he has the softest tread. Tim knew he was in the kitchen. I did not know. And then he wasn't in the kitchen. He's so quiet. And so that's been a little creepy for me. I've had to do some worksheets on, what does this mean when we have this person who's both here and not here? And, my mind is not my friend often, and that's why we have worksheets, thank goodness. But the worksheets I was doing didn't yield enough of the right results. It was mostly like, allow him to be and do what he's doing, breathe, go about my business. This isn't really, I have a lot of ideas. You had me do a list of all the power person injunctions on what we expect from somebody who is living with us, or are they imposing. That was very fruitful too, but it's like, it's going to be ugly the way I'll say this. It's like a pimple. I'll pop it and then it fills right up again, if you know what I mean. Just so
77 times 70 worksheets.
So much stuff. And the fact that he's right here, I'm thinking, God, this is really amazing. This person is right here. So at one point I said, I can't live with my thoughts. And the wake-up sheets are just a drop in the bucket. I'm not getting the results I need. And so I actually intruded on him. I turned on the basement light, and I got halfway down the stairs. I said, "Michael, can I come down?" And he said, "Sure." He's always very friendly, but it's his space, And so I came down, and I said, "What is going on with you? You seem different." And he started to cry. He started to shake. He said, "I think I'm dying." And I said, "What?" And he said, "It's too embarrassing for me to talk about." And I said, "Michael, women know about stuff. They secrete stuff from all orifices often. And I've been a hospice, volunteer nurse. You can talk to me about anything. I won't be shocked. I won't be grossed out." And he said, "Well," and he told me about something happening in his private parts, which is very painful and embarrassing. And he thinks he's dying of colon cancer. And I said, "Have you been losing weight? I mean, are you eating? Are you sleeping?" And he said, "No, I'm not losing weight." And I said, "You're probably not dying of colon cancer, but you probably ought to see a doctor." And then came the list of reasons why he can't go to the ER. He has the dog. They only gave him Tylenol the last time. He had to wait 4 hours. He doesn't want to see a doctor. So, I'm getting this stonewall. And so I said, okay. And I do what Tim Hayes says. Tim Hayes has the way he says, okay, like, okay, whatever, okay. It's not my stuff to fuss with. I could tell just even talking about him helped him kind of loosen up. Plus, he didn't get his Social Security infusion. His phone has been cut off because he doesn't have money for a phone card for this month. He's no longer working at the refugee center for which we were paying him. And he's sitting down there. He says he has less than a quarter of a tank of gas and he can't get groceries. Well, of course, we're not going to let him starve. But he didn't want to ask us for stuff. And he's down there, and I'm reading about homelessness, which is a great help. You know, you like to watch films that challenge you and make you do worksheets. I don't like to do those, but I've been watching documentaries about homelessness, and they are worksheet material. It's very, very disturbing to watch those. So I'm learning a lot from that end.
It's disturbing, or it brings up disturbance in you?
Right. Okay. Touche, Michael. You did it again. Yep. It brings up an extreme amount of disturbance. Yes. So, anyway,
awesome.
I know you always like that.
I'm excited for you.
Well, it is certainly a huge, in-your-face learning opportunity. There's just no way of getting away from it. So, and Tim and I have no clue on the long picture. Michael's talking about wanting to take his own life, but he has this dog. He says, and if I should die before the dog, I'm terrified for the dog. I said, the dog will be fine. We'll make sure the dog is fine. He's a cute, tiny, little, adorable blind dog, 12 years old. And he says, on the other hand, I'm tired. I don't want to live. I just don't want to live. So he's in a very, very, very bad way.
Yeah.
And there we are. We're just sitting with this. And, you know, doing forgiveness work, I'm not good enough at it yet to have it, but it was a tremendous relief to talk to him. I just said, we have to never get silent like that, because my thoughts go haywire and I think the worst. And he said, yeah, it's good to talk. I'm glad we're talking, and thanks for talking, and I really appreciate you guys. And he, you know, so today it seems a little lighter. He came upstairs. We gave him some grocery money. He's waiting for his Social Security to come through. But there's something wrong with the system. A lot of people are writing into Twitter. He says Twitter people are telling about how they're waiting for their checks, and they're really up a creek because they're living off these checks. So I don't know where I'm going with this now, Michael, except to say I feel as if we've been put in or found ourselves in a situation that we don't know, and that is an issue, is we have lost control completely of what's going to happen, and we're learning to live with it. But it hasn't been that easy.
Right. Well, one of the things that comes up is, you know, if he's talking about suicide, is to you know, perhaps see if you can connect him in with some resources for suicide prevention, for support, which, you know, he very possibly, and this is one of the challenges with dealing with suicide, it very possibly could be seen as a betrayal. So that's the challenge with that, but it sounds like some professional support, which, you know, doesn't have to involve money. There's lots of services out there, but you might connect them in with someone in the community that can be of support.
His dog is pretty much a guarantee that he won't do anything, at least as long as the dog is alive. He said, I live for that dog, literally does. So I felt as if it's a direct emergency because the dog is healthy and okay. He is 12, though. But little dogs, I don't know, they last a long time sometimes.
Yeah.
So, and he also
well, the other side of
like
that.
I feel as if I'm... Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
He just says, I feel as if I'm living in a dream. Well, you know, as I get older and certain of the things I cared so much about earlier have fallen away, I sometimes feel that way too. I said, I know what you mean. I think we're getting ready to not be on this plane. I know, Michael, you have ways of keeping alive for a long time. But my thinking has changed as I get older. I'm less attached to things.
Right.
I was very attached before. I think that's a good thing, too. But
yes.
Anyway, what were you going to say?
Well, just that as you assure him that his dog's taken care of, you might want to look at that. Might be a double-edged sword, because if he goes, so if the dog's taken care of, then I can go. And again, that would be a good reason to tap him into some suicide prevention support.
Yeah. He fought me on the continuing to take care of the dog thing. He said, oh, you don't understand him. He has a very particular schedule. And I don't think anybody is up for taking care of him, which is sort of like backing off, you know, saying, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to be with him until he isn't here. But anyway, it's true. I should probably talk to him about getting in touch with people. We have tried to get him a coach and a caseworker. He's not interested in working with anybody. I think it's just PTSD so high up the kazoo that he feels safest when he's playing video games and doing nothing.
Isolated.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I know that the abuse that a lot of homeless people that I've worked with over the years is pretty horrendous. I mean, just, you know, like almost incomprehensible. And so, you know, I think there comes a point where there's a connection between just being with people and being in trauma and unresolved. So it's a tough one. And there are people whose profession it is to support people in that position. So,
well, that's a good idea.
You know, my other thought would be that maybe talk to some professionals in the area who are about suicide support and get their advice as to how to approach him with that you'd like to offer that. And, you know, maybe getting special input from someone who that's their field, you know, is certainly not my field. So, but there are people who might be able to say, well, here's a way that, you know, maybe I could just drop over as a friend and say hello, and we get in a conversation, you know, so it's not feeling like he's been betrayed again.
Yeah.
That sort of thing, perhaps.
Well, thanks. That's pretty much the report. Anyway, I'll keep you posted.
Well, we'll be holding the space.
Thanks. And you're traveling tomorrow, or Jeanie's going to get you tomorrow?
Wednesday. I'll fly out of here on Wednesday, and unless something changes, my plan is to head back home on Wednesday. So.
Oh, okay. And so you'll be doing the radio show tomorrow?
As right now, I mean, it's subject to change. I've committed to the kids to be support for whatever they need, and so if something comes up that interferes with that, then of course that will change. But as far as I know right now, all spaces are clear for tomorrow, and then flying time. So Wednesday will be a pre-recorded show, and then back on Thursday.
Good.
That's my plan. I'm sticking to it.
Good.
All right. Well, anything else on your mind for today, young lady?
No, Tim is having us read sections of this book by Christian Sundborg called A Walk in the Physical, and it does blow my mind that Tim has a way of uncovering newer and more current presentations of what you teach. There's the Course in Miracles, there's the Course of Love, there's Michael Ryce, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And this book was put out in 2021. And it's as if the way of presenting the materials keeps morphing to meet the present mindsets of people who may be receptive. Oh, and I'm hoping that for Marianne Williams, when she ran before, we weren't ready, and I'm thinking we're ready. I'm hoping we're ready.
Well, I feel very hopeful that, if nothing else, she's going to inject the presence of love into some conversations where most people are stuck in, and they don't even know it when they, judge somebody else as having certain attitudes. They don't even realize that's their own unconscious attitudes that they're playing out of. And so I think that Marianne having the ability to put out the more ideas based in love into the body politic will be a powerful gift for the world.
And it is universal. It's non-partisan. It is
absolutely.
Anybody from any side listens to what she says. How could they argue with it? So I'm just hoping that I'm hoping a kind of openness will be there.
Well, if nothing else, it's going to build the brain cells for people.
Yeah.
If nothing else, that's how, to me, that's what happened in 2020. There was one debate that she did, and I forget what the numbers are now, but, as I said in that post, like in 32 states, she was the most searched for name on Google for several days.
Wow.
And so people are at least listening, and she's injecting in a conversation where things like the active presence of love and caring and support are not spoken about very much.
Yeah.
Pretty bizarre, but...
Right. Okay.
So, we're ready for change.
Yes.
Yay. Well, we appreciate you.
Thanks, Michael. I appreciate you
the
very much.
questions you come up with. And... All right, young lady. Take care. Blessings.
Thanks. You too.
All right. Well, Miss Jeanie.
Hey, nobody has a hand up. So we have 20 minutes. We still have plenty of time. I just got a really sweet, I had sent a similar text to Michael J. and Jamie that I had sent to Krista, and I just got a sweet response, Michael J. And he says, my mom was the kindest person that I know.
And sweetie?
You're one of the very few people that I would count being close. Things will never be quite the same without her, and we're both very lucky and thankful to have you as a second mom.
I agree. They are. So am I. Well, one of my thoughts is that we read, and it's just taking me a second. I'm going to go to the post. Here's what my daughter Krista wrote as a tribute to her mom. And if there's anybody that knows CJ, we've got a private Facebook page. And if you know CJ, send us a note, and we'll gladly send you an invitation to her Facebook page. But here's Krista's tribute to her mom. Warm and soft, soothing smile, hugs, always comforting, magical kisses for the scrape on my knee. Normal, healthy, perfect. That was always a phrase with our kids when they were small. Whenever they would hurt themselves, normal, healthy, perfect. She goes on and writes, the solution to any ailment, you always smelled of twilight with a warm summer breeze, never contrary. Always enduring my icy cold feet when I would sneak in under your covers, seeking solace from the gremlins living under my bed. You taught me to love words and art, to be self-sufficient, never dependent, always pursue the biggest of dreams, always find happiness, moments of beauty, a glimpse of light in the darkness, a 25-cent trinket on the way out of the store, hot tea and rice cakes, summertime lullabies, summertime and the living is easy. Easy escaped you. You persevered. Your heart never bitter. Your soul never tarnished. Warm and soft, soothing smile, wheel of fortune and foot rubs, pardon me. Summertime and the cotton is high. Your daddy's rich and your mama good looking. But time can be relentless, usurping your health, saying goodbye to a shell that once had your name. So hush, little baby, don't you cry. Tears have been shed, hearts broken. You will always be with us. A voice in our hearts, a glimpse of light in the darkness, kindness and beauty in a world so cold. Memories of bedtime stories, soft, soothing smiles, magical kisses. So hush, little baby, don't you cry. Your soul is now in its truest form, encompassed by wings, an angel watching over us. Sweet. So that's Krista Joy's tribute to her mom. And breathing with everyone. And we still have about 15 minutes for conversation, so it would be awesome if somebody would put their hand up and have a conversation with us. If you're listening on one of those stations where we can't see you, the call-in number is 563-999-3581. If you call that number, you'll be listening to the show live. And then if you push 1, you and I and Jeanie will be having a conversation. So how can we support you? What's on your mind? And if we have no questions at this point, then I think I'm going to go back and be with the kids and processing, and I'm hoping that they're going to open the space for me to breathe them. We haven't gotten to that point yet, but appreciation to everyone who listens, and join us tomorrow. Blessings. Bye-bye.